And the single difference has been historically criticized as one variable having the greatest significance on test results. So these initial steps in the relay assembly studies lasted only for 3 months, and in August, like rest periods were introduced and other changes followed over the rest of the test period, including shortened work days and weeks. So as the test periods turned from months into years, worker productivity continued to climb and once again providing unexpected results from the Hawthorne team to evaluate. So productivity increased in excess of 30% over the first 2.5 years of the studies and remained steady for the duration of the test. The physicals indicated improved worker health and absenteeism decreased. By their own testimony, the women expressed increased satisfaction with all aspects of their job. So researchers tentatively concluded that performance and efficiency improved because of the rest periods, relief from monotonous working conditions, and the wage incentive and the type of supervision provided in the test environment. After additional study and consideration, the first two factors were rejected, and further tests were conducted in an attempt to verify the effects of incentives and working conditions. The results were still not totally conclusive, and finally, researchers realized that the worker attitude within the group were influential, as was a more personal atmosphere of the test room. And they concluded factors such as lighting, hours of work, rest periods, bonus incentives, and supervision affected workers, but the attitudes of the employees experiencing the factors were of greater significance. So, as a result, the Hawthorne team decided not to pursue similar studies, and almost significant during the relay assembly test was the introduction of a team of academics from the Harvard Business School into the experiments, and which was led by professors Alton Mayo and F.J. Roethlisberger. And this group of researchers would have an enormous impact on the Hawthorne studies in the future of human relations in the workplace. However, the same experiment was done on a group of 6 women placed in the same room, whereas the production increased because they felt like a group where they were all connected through a teamwork. And this is a common sense, just like in a classroom, as students meet day by day and study together the same materials, they will feel a sense of freedom and they will not experience in a playground floor. So Mayo's contributions became increasingly significant in the experiments during the interviewing stages of the test. So early results from the illumination test and the relay assembly test led to surveys of worker attitudes, surveys not limited to test participants. So let me actually figure out like what was the step-by-step procedure of the experiment which had, experiment which has got most influence by the work conditions and how the productivity has increased. So under normal conditions with a 48-hour week, including Saturdays and no rest pauses, the girls produced 2,400 relays a week each. They were then put on piecework for 8 weeks. Output increased. They were given 2 5-minute breaks, one in the morning and one in the afternoon for a period of 5 weeks. Output increased yet again. The breaks were each lengthened to 10 minutes. Output rose sharply. 6 5-minute breaks were introduced. The girls complained that their work rhythm was broken by the frequent pauses. Output fell only slightly. The original 2 breaks were reinstated, that is 5 minutes and 10 minutes, this time with a complimentary hot meal provided during the morning break. Output increased further still. The workday was shortened to end at 4:30 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. Output increased. The workday was shortened to end at 4 p.m. Output leveled off. Finally, all the improvements were taken away and the original conditions before the experiment were reinstated. They were monitored in this state for 12 more weeks. Output was the highest ever recorded, averaging 3,000 relays a week. So by this experiment, they have concluded that the work conditions definitely have an impact on the productivity of the employees. So this was about the second experiment in the Hawthorne experiments, relay assembly test room experiment. Third test which was done, bank wiring test. So these tests began in November 1931, and the foreman of the bank writing department resisted the intrusion of observers into his workspace, and a bank writing test room was set up. The test room housed 9 wirers, 3 soldierers and 2 inspectors. All were male between the ages of 20 and 25. Their job was to wire conductor banks, a repetitive and monotonous task. The banks were one of the major components of automatic telephone exchange, and between 3,000 and 6,000 terminals they had to wire for a set of banks, and the work was tiring and required the workers to stand for a long period of time. Pay incentives and productivity measures were removed, but a researcher was placed into the test room as an observer, and the workers were interviewed. The purpose of the bank writing test was to observe and study social relationships and social structures within a group. And W. Lloyd Warner and William J. Dixon were the two who were the most significant members of this research team, who were actually interviewing these people. Warner was on Mayo's Harvard team, trained as an anthropologist and primarily interested in Hawthorne from an entirely different perspective, that of an observer of the social behavior of a group. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of the bank wiring test was that the workers combined to slow down production, a clear indication of the need for analysis of the social relationships of workers. So research showed that most admired worker among the group was the one who demonstrated the greatest resentment of authority by slowing down production the most. These tests were intended to study the group as a functioning unit and observe its behavior. And the study findings confirmed the complexity of group relations and stressed the expectations of the group over an individual's preferences. So the conclusion was to tie the importance of what workers felt about one another to worker motivation. The researchers found that although the workers were paid according to individual productivity decreased because the men were afraid that the company would lower the base rate. There was no trust between employees and researchers, and there were no actually trust between the employees and researchers. So they simply held down production to the level they thought was in their best interest. And same thing happened when a classmate of yours, if you take an as if you assume if when a classmate of yours steal the exam paper and the administration finds out, you would not say who did it because you wouldn't want your classmate to be kicked out of school. So your interest is to say that you don't know, hoping that they don't change the exam papers, isn't it? So employees had physical as well as social needs, and the company gradually developed a program of human relations, include employee counseling and improved supervision with an emphasis on the individual workers. And the results were a reinterpretation of industrial group behavior and the introduction of what has become human relations. And the last experiment in the Hawthorne experiment is about the interview process. Under this experiment, they began to incorporate extensive interviewing, and the researchers hoped to glean details about the home life or the relationship with a spouse or a parent of the employees may play a major role in employees' attitude towards work and interactions with the supervisor. So this experiment was done in between 1928 to 1930 by Mayo and Roethlisberger, where they conducted interviews of about 21,000 to, that is 21,000 employees they have interviewed, and they tried to Find out what are the factors that may lead to the employees' attitudes towards the work and interaction with the supervisors. So basically, the interview was more of like a defined conversation in which employee is encouraged to express himself freely upon any topic of his own choosing. So these interviews were around 30 minutes, and they actually grew it to 90 minutes or even 2 hours in length in a process based upon the emotional release of the employees. And the resulting records hundreds and hundreds of pages in which employees disclose personal details of their day-to-day lives, offer an astonishingly intimate portrait of the American industrial worker in years leading to and the following depression, and about their uh, colleagues' attitudes or the comments about the general working conditions or the specific jobs of supervisors, and talking about their favorable and unfavorable comments. So all these things have been interpreted in this experiment, and both the workers and the supervisors' comments would aid in the development of personal policies and supervisory training, including the subsequent implementation of a routine counseling program for employees. So this was about the fourth experiment that has been done in the Hawthorne experiment. So there were also the criticisms of Hawthorne experiments or the Hawthorne studies. First one is they could not reveal any reliable relation between the social satisfaction of industrial workers and their work performance, and they have failed to recognize the vast discrepancy between evidence and conclusions of those studies, and a major deficiency in almost like in 3 of the stages of the experiment. First, in the first stage, there was no attempt to establish sample groups representative of those larger population, and therefore there was no generalization. And secondly, there was no attempt to employ control data from the output records of the girls who were not put under special experimental conditions. And third was, even if both previous points had been met, the experiments would still have been of minor scientific value, since a group of 5 subjects is too small to yield statistically reliable studies. Let us see the contribution of F.W. Taylor. He was an American who joined Midvale Steelworks, Philadelphia, USA as a mechanist, and gradually rose to the position of the chief engineer through hard work and progress. And he has conducted various experiments in 3 of the companies: Midvale Steelworks, Simon's Rolling Machine, and Bethlehem Steelworks. Taylor scientific management was in fact a movement known as scientific management movement, where along with his followers, he has carried out certain experiment, and the most important publication of Taylor was entitled in his publication, which was Scientific Management. So the fundamental principles which would support the concept and practice of scientific management were science, not the rule of thumb; harmony, not discord; cooperation, not individualism; maximum production in place of restricted production, and development of each person to the greatest of his capabilities; a more equal division of responsibility between management and workers; and mental revolution on the part of management and workers. Let me explain you each of these in detail. The first one is about the science, which is not the rule of the thumb. So the basic principle of scientific management is the adoption of a scientific approach to managerial decision making, and a complete disregard of all unscientific approaches which are practiced by the management. So science is not a rule of thumb. And second one is harmony, not discord. So harmony refers to the unity of action, while a discord refers to the differences in approach. Third one we have is a cooperation, not individualism. Cooperation refers to working on the part of people towards the attainment of group objectives while regarding their individual objectives as subordinate to the general interest. And fourth one we have is the maximum production in place of restricted production. So in Taylor's view, the most dangerous evil of the industrial system was a deliberate restriction of output. So as a means of promoting the prosperity of workers, management and society, this principle of scientific management emphasized on maximizing production and not deliberately restricting it. And the fifth one we have is a development of each person to the greatest of his capabilities. Always management must endeavor to develop people to the greatest of their capabilities to ensure maximum prosperity for both employees and employers. Sixth point is a more equal division of responsibility between management and workers. So this principle recommends a separation of planning from execution. According to this principle, management must be first concerned with the planning of work and then it should direct the workers to execute those plans. And the last one we have is mental revolution on the part of management and workers. According to Taylor, scientific management involves a complete mental revolution on the part of both the sides of the industries, that is workers and the management. In fact, this is a principle of the scientific management that's most fundamental, ensuring the success of organization. It's like a foundation on which the building of scientific management must be based. So that was about what were the principles of the scientific management given by F.W. Taylor. And in the unit 1, the last contribution, second last in fact, was given by Henry Fayol. And Henry Fayol has come up with a model where he has let us know how the management interacts with the personnel. So Fayol's management theory covers the concepts in a broader way, like how any business would apply the theory of management. But Fayol's classical management theory will be a relevant guide in order to know the productively managing staff in the organization. So Henry Fayol has come up with 14 principles of management, and he had concluded that management should interact with personnel in 5 basic ways in order to control and plan production. So these are the 5 ways in which the management can control and plan production and increase the productivity in the organization by having a good interaction with the employees. The first one is planning. So management must plan and schedule every part of the industrial process. Second one we have is organizing. Henry Fayol argued that in addition to planning a manufacturing process, management must also make certain all of the necessary resources like raw materials, personnel, machinery come together at the appropriate time of production. Third one we have is commanding. Management must encourage and direct their personal activity. Fourth one we have is coordinating. Management must also make certain plans for the personnel, that is the employees, to work together in a cooperative fashion. And the last one we have is controlling, the final management activity, which is for the manager to evaluate and ensure that the personnel, that is the employees, they follow management's commands. So this was about the Henry Fayol. Peter Drucker, also known as the father of modern management theory, he coined the leadership terms and strategies that are still used today. He advocated for a more flexible collaborative workplace and the delegation of power across the board. According to Drucker, management is doing things right and leadership is doing the right things. Unlike many management theories, Drucker thought that subordinates should have the opportunity to take risk, learn and grow in the workplace. So he had included few modern concepts in his management theory. Those are decentralization, knowledge work, management by objectives. Let me tell you what is called as decentralization. He wanted all employees to feel valued and empowered, like their work and voice mattered. He believed in assigning tasks that inspire workers and bringing supervisors and their subordinates together to achieve common company goals. According to him, knowledge workers are those whose jobs require handling or using information, such as engineers or analysts. And Drucker placed high value on workers who solved problems and thought creatively. He wanted to cultivate a culture of employees who could provide insight and ideas. So he had correctly forecasted a decrease in blue collar workers, and that's the reason today there is an increasing number of knowledge workers in the business world. And the third concept was management by objectives. So this is basically a process that encourages employees of all levels to work together. And each worker has an equal say, sharing their own insight and opinions to reach common ground. From there, teams established shared goals and delegate tasks according to skill sets and interest. Since management by objective is a process, it has got 5 steps. First one is about reviewing the goals of the organization. Second one is about setting objectives in order to reach these goals. Third one is monitor the progress, how far the employees are towards reaching these goals. And fourth one is evaluating their performances. And last one is rewarding all the employees for their performance to reach the goals of the organization. So this was the contribution that has made by the Peter Drucker in the modern management. Thank you.